Hello everyone, welcome to Computer Cleanliness Made Easy. My name is Athena Ikegami, and I am an associate with Gwinnett County Public Libraries. So today we're going to be talking about both the insides and the outsides of your computer, how to keep them clean and working in good order. So first we're going to start with the inside of your computer. So even with the cleanest household that you might have, no matter how much you clean, sometimes things are going to build up on the inside of your computer. Whether that be dust bunnies, whether that be pet hair, whether that be food crumbs, whether that be things, small pieces that you work with. Sometimes it's just going to build up, whether that be with your desktop computer or with your laptop. So that might be something that you need to schedule an annual date or maybe a monthly date to say, hey, today's the day I'm going to sit down and physically clean out my computer. So this is the inside of what might be a typical computer that's built up with a lot of dust. So as you can see, especially around the fans and sort of the air intake ports you might see at the very top there, this can be a very big hazard, both electrically as well as it can cause your computer to heat up very quickly. This is something that can cause a lot of damage and potentially, in very, very extreme cases, cause a fire. This is something we do not want to happen, and by cleaning out our computers can alleviate a lot of issues. So now let's talk about the outside of our computers. And mostly I'm going to be talking about desktop computers, so where you see the tower typically associated with a computer. This is mostly what I'm going to be talking about, but a lot of these apply to a laptop as well. So don't be alarmed by the number of wires, ports, and other types of things that might be sticking out from your computer, especially if you didn't set it up yourself. Everything has a home that your wires or ports are going to belong to. So if you think you might not be able to figure out where things plug back into when you take them out in order to clean your computer, try taking a photograph with your phone or maybe drawing a diagram in order to make it much easier to plug everything back in afterwards. So let's take a look at the back of a typical computer case. So we're looking at a few key components that might look a little bit different for your personal computer, however, are going to be the same types of components depending on where they might be located. So we have typical things like the power supply, where you plug your computer in and where it's going to draw in power. Things for your external speakers or possibly your headphones. Green typically means the sound output, so things like where you plug in your headphones or your speakers. And then blue or red typically means for microphones or audio input devices. So the network cable from your modem or from your router is typically going to look like this. You'll have USB ports to plug in things such as your keyboard, your mouse, your printers, your cameras, things like that. Sort of any various peripheral devices. So these are going to be your monitor inputs typically. So things that you can plug in, and most of the time they're going to come in various sizes and shapes, and you're just going to want to try to match those up to the best of your ability. Same with smaller ports like these. And if you have an older style keyboard, these are typically on much older machines, however they might plug into smaller ports such as these. Alright, so let's talk about some of the steps we're going to take in order for cleaning inside of your case, and I'll be showing a video example of this later on in the presentation. So you're going to want to purchase something called canned air. Canned air is typically compressed air that's inside of an aerosol looking can. So if you've ever used any sort of cleaning product in the past that comes out typically in a spray, that's very similar. However, it's just very, very simple. It's just air. However, it's in a very compressed state, so it comes out very fast. And it makes it much simpler and much safer for cleaning a computer simply because there's no sort of cleaning agent in it, so it's not going to short circuit the computer in any way. However, do not use any sort of vacuum cleaner or shop vac type products, as you can damage the electronics with the hose and they can build up static electricity very quickly on the computer, which can damage it very heavily. So, after you acquire the canned air, you're going to want to shut down, unplug, and remove everything that is attached to the computer. bring the case outside or to your garage, some sort of exposed area. Do not do this inside of your house if you can help it, as there's going to be a lot of particles flying around and it's going to be a mess to clean up later. You're going to want to slide the side cover off of your computer and blow out any areas, especially fans, including the CPU, the power supply, and all other case fans. And I'll demonstrate this in the video. However, any high-use areas that intake air, which I'll be sure to demonstrate, and try to circulate the air throughout your computer, and you're going to see a lot of the dust build up inside of your computer, especially if it's been a while. So, you're going to want to use the canned air inside the case from the inside to the outside. Blow in between the hard drive cases and all other wirings. Use the air on the front bezel of your canned air to blow the dust in between the cracks of different components, and try not to shake the can too much, otherwise it would become too cold to handle. The compressed nature of the can makes it so that as it gets moved around more, it tends to get colder and colder and colder. So if you can help it, if you can get 2 cans of the canned air and make it a little bit easier, so if it gets too cold to handle as you tend to jostle it and move it around a little bit more, make your life much, much easier. So, the side panel of your computer is going to look a little something like this. And it'll depend on your individual computer and the individual case that you may have, but usually it's going to have 2 little side screws such as these. Once you remove those, it'll make it much easier to slide the case off and lift up. And this is an example of a typical fan that you're going to see on the inside of your computer that circulates the air throughout the machine and keeps it cool. These are one of the areas you're definitely going to concentrate on, and it's going to have a lot of dust buildup. So, cleaning the outside of our case. So to use the canned air on your keyboard, or turn the can sideways and blow in between each of the keys. Keyboards especially, I know since I work from home a lot, I do have quite a bit of food crumbs, hair buildup. My cat tends to get a lot of his hair in between each of the keys of my keyboard. It's easy to get a lot of gunk buildup in your keyboard individually, so it's very important to do these as well. So wipe down the computer case with a clean, dry cloth or spray a small amount of glass cleaner on the cloth and wipe. Never, ever, ever spray directly on the case. This can damage the case as well as allow some liquid to get inside of your case, which can short circuit some of the components inside of your computer. I'd also recommend leaving your computer unplugged during this phase as well. You can use the same technique that I described here also for cleaning your mouse. If you have an older style CRT monitor, you can use glass cleaner to clean the screen. However, never spray it directly on the surface. And that's for the same reason we do not want the glass cleaner getting inside the case and short-circuiting any of the components. If you have a flat screen monitor, such as some of the newer monitors, do not use any cleaning solvents on the screen. Instead, use a dry, soft cloth and gently wipe the screen. Microfiber cloths, such as the one used to clean eyeglasses, work well. I do not suggest using a towel, t-shirt, anything like that. They have rougher fibers that can possibly damage the screen or scratch it. If you need to clean your screen, I suggest possibly tissues or going out and getting a microfiber cloth. Those really are the best option. If you're not sure what type of monitor that you have, it may be best to ask a professional. So when wiping down the screen, do not press hard, which may cause the pixels to burn out. So typically pixels are individual points of light that are present on newer monitors. So whenever you start wiping down on it, do not press hard at all. It's not going to take any sort of effort in order to get any sort of dust or gunk off. If you press too hard, it can cause those little tiny lights to burn out and can cause problems in the future. You may also use a cloth dampened with distilled water, an equal amount of distilled water and white vinegar. And this is typically if there's something that's physically stuck to the screen, such as any sort of gunk or dirt, things like that, like if something very bad happened, though we wouldn't recommend this for day-to-day cleaning. And this is like what I talked about earlier. Do not use any of the following on your screen: paper towels, tissues, t-shirts, or ammonia-based cleaners. Any of these will damage the screen very, very easily, and remember to never ever spray anything directly onto the electronic item. Like I keep reiterating, this can cause very, very permanent damage, both immediately and for the foreseeable future. Alright, hello everyone. So today we're going to be demonstrating how to clean out the inside of our computer. So this, as you can see, is my own personal computer. I've brought it out to my garage today because I don't want to spray it out on the inside of my house, otherwise it's going to create a lot of mess. So right now I've got it in my garage. I apologize if the lighting is not the best in here. I've done the best that I could opening it up. So what I'm going to do is look for the bolt on the back of the computer in order to open it up. So we can see right here, I'm just going to remove this bolt real quick. Usually they're not very hard at all to take off. And that's going to let the side bolt here slide off freely. And that exposes the inside of my computer. So from here we can see the inside of it. We can see it's a little bit dusty in there. I've done my best in order to try and keep it clean, but I've been a little negligent on that. So now I'm going to go ahead and grab my canned air in order so we can clean out the inside of it. Alright, so this is my canned air. I just grabbed this from Office Depot earlier today. It's very simple. All we have to do is insert the straw in the front of the nozzle, and then we're going to use that to casually sweep back and forth on the inside of my computer, cleaning out. Just pay special note to the fan that we see right here, the dust that you can see building up in between each of the components, as well as the wiring and any of the slots that you see over here, especially near where my video card is. So I'm going to demonstrate that for you now. Alright, so let's get started. So the main things to keep in mind is to move back and forth as much as possible. Wow, so you can see, even just on first passes, I remove a lot of dust. So I'm going to first focus on the fan. And by rotating it, I can see just how much I'm getting in. And it's very important to focus on the fan, as it's the main way to keep your computer cool, and that's going to help it to run faster and to be safer in the long run. And you may feel the bottle get a little bit colder as you grip it, especially around here. As you begin to use it, that is not a problem. If it gets a little bit too cold, don't be afraid to take breaks. Or if you have more than one bottle, feel free to use those and to switch between them as you go. It's best practice. So I'm going to work my way around my case and just keep going. I'm getting quite a bit of dust here. So I'm going to try and get in between my wires, try and get in the back of the case where I normally can't get it too well. The main thing to keep in mind is you don't want to actually physically touch anything. If you're going to go in and actually touch any of your components, especially any of the wiring, any of the motherboard, any of the individual pieces, you're going to want something called an anti-static bracelet. Whether you're touching it personally or whether you're touching it with any tools, as you can damage some things by touching it with the oils on your skin. So you want gloves and an anti-static bracelet just so you don't cause any sort of damage. However, since we're using the canned air, which is nothing, just compressed air, it's not a problem in this situation. Alright, so since I have finished, what I'm going to do is just slide my case back onto the side here. A little tough to do one-handed. Alright, I will get my screw and put it back on. And that's as simple as that. Just try to do that every few months, and it really helps your computer's lifetime and its overall performance. Alright, so now we're going to move on to the software side of cleaning out our computer. So all new computers these days tend to come with something called bloatware, i.e. software that is typically of no real use to you and costs money to fully activate in most instances. So most people don't know that they can uninstall this software without real consequences to Windows, Apple, whatever system you might be actually using. And removing unnecessary items such as bloatware does free up hard drive space for you in the long run. It may cause your computer to actually run just a little bit faster. So let's talk about where we can go in order to actually remove programs that we may not need from our computer. So when we're using Windows 10, where we're going to go is Start, Settings, Systems and Settings, and then to Apps and Features. If we're using Windows 8, it's Start, Control Panel, Uninstall a Program. Windows 7, Start, Control Panel, Programs and Features. For Dell, HP, Gateway, and etc., installing software that they think you might like but are not completely free is something that they typically do whenever that they give you a brand new computer from scratch. You can feel free to uninstall them, as typically they might be something that is kind of nice on a day-to-day basis but isn't actually necessary to run the computer. So what are some examples of bloatware? So multiple internet browsers such as Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Internet Explorer, they're not actually necessary to have more than one that you use on a day-to-day basis. Internet Explorer or Edge is something that can't actually be removed from most computers. However, if you have another browser such as Chrome or Firefox that you use on your day-to-day basis, you can keep Internet Explorer over to the side while you use those. It won't actually slow down your computer simply because it's such a small program. However, if you have multiple different other larger browsers such as Chrome, Firefox, and Safari, it might be better just to pare it down to one. So malware, software that is specifically designed in order to disrupt, damage, or gain unauthorized access to a computer system. This is something that can typically be handled by an antivirus software that is installed on your computer, and this is something that we'll be talking about in just a little bit. Trialware. Typically, this is a full version of software that allows you to run it for 30 to 90 days, then it locks itself until you buy it. So some trialware may come pre-installed on your computer. This might be something you've seen, for example, such as Norton Internet antivirus software. So typically what it will do is say, hey, you have a certain number of days in order to try this, then after that you're going to need to buy the full version in order to keep using me. So after this point, maybe you want to try this out while you have that trial version, but feel free to uninstall it after that point if you don't feel like you're going to actually buy this product. So let's talk about regaining some space on your hard drive by deleting unused files. So first we're going to start by deleting unnecessary files from your download or your temp folders, as typically these are things you're not going to need beyond the day that you download them. You're going to be looking for .zip or .exe files, as typically these are only used in order to extract the contents, and after that you're not going to need them anymore. And after you install a new program, you can delete the executable file, so that .exe file, or the .zip. Once you extract the contents of that, that's when you can get rid of the original .zip. You can also use programs like CCleaner, which I'm going to talk about in just a little bit, to delete temporary internet files, cookies, and browser history, which is what I was talking about with the temp folder. So to uninstall programs you no longer or have never used. So if you go through your program list and you think, man, I haven't really used this in quite a while. It's been, 6 months since I've last opened that. It might be time in order to uninstall that program. So do you see a number of programs in your Add or Remove Programs list that we talked about earlier, but you don't know what they are or what they do? A good practice might be to Google the program's name to see if it is something that you actually need. Another good practice is to run what's called a disk cleanup. This is something that's present in every Windows system. So if you go to Start, All Programs, Accessories, System Tools, Disk Cleanup, and choose your C drive, and you check the boxes next to the items that you want to delete, this can go through and delete a lot of unnecessary files from your computer and make it a lot easier. If this isn't the exact pathway in order to access the disk cleanup tool for your personal system, you can always Google disk cleanup and the type of Windows system that you're using, such as Windows 10, Windows 7, etc., and it'll direct you to the right place. So this is what disk cleanup might look like for you. So in this case, I want to get rid of my downloaded program files and my temporary internet files, as these are things that I don't necessarily need anymore and are just taking up space. And that's going to free up 9.68 megabytes of space. It might be more than you actually think that it's going to be. So I'm going to check the boxes next to there and say Clean Up System Files. That's going to get me a lot of space and make my computer just that much faster. So, defragging is something that may take a little bit more time, but is going to give you much more space on your computer. So as your computer ages and you add more and more data to your hard drive and add or remove programs, the hard drive becomes fragmented, i.e. all the little bits and pieces stored on your disk get all jumbled up. Putting them back in order and cleaning up the unnecessary bits may speed up your computer just a little bit more. Download and uninstall the free Defragler program. This does a better job than the built-in Windows defrag tool, though it's not completely necessary, but I do trust Defragler. So Defragler is available on the website called pureform.com. They're the people who make Defragler, but if you do want to use the Windows built-in defrag tool, that's also completely fine. So the first time that you run a defrag program, you should do a full defrag. For future uses, you can also just do a quick defrag. It's not going to be necessary to scan your entire computer from then on. How often should I do this? There's not really a right answer. So if you use your computer really heavily, you might want to do it maybe once every 2 weeks or so. If you use it for just sort of light use, checking your email every other week, or maybe just communicating with people online, it might be better to do it monthly, every few months, annually. It just depends on your use, how old the computer is, your comfort level. So this is what a very fragmented drive that requires a full defrag is going to look like. And this is after you run sort of the analysis at first. So once I click the Analyze button, this is what it's going to look like. All of this red means that these are fragmented files that are out of place, that have bits of information that aren't quite in the right area. This is not a very good thing. So I'm going to want to run a full defrag on this. And this is what it's going to look like afterwards. It's got a ton of space that's all freed up. Looks so much better now. And in the future, all I'm going to have to do is do a quick defrag in order to help things up. So notes on defragging. If you have what's called a solid state hard drive, you're never ever going to need to defrag. You're also not going to defrag the thumb drives or anything with flash memory. If you don't know if you have a solid state drive or what's typically called an SSD, you may want to check with that either with a professional, or there's a little tool that you can use called Speccy. It's by the same people that make Defragler. That can help you in order to determine what kind of hardware that you're working with. So when you're running Speccy, if it mentions anything about heads and cylinders, you have a conventional hard drive, something that you may need to defrag. But if not, then you have what's called solid state drive, which has no actual mechanical parts to it. It's called solid state because there's no moving parts on the inside of the drive. So in this case, this is what a typical hard drive is going to look like. It has heads and cylinders, as you see mentioned here. That means it's a traditional hard drive, and it is going to need to be defragged. So lastly for today, let's talk about organizing our files, as this is just as important in an effort to clean up our computer as everything else we've talked about. So the My Documents folders are the key to organizing our files as well as for backing them up. So when we store all of our documents, including all of our pictures, our music, our videos, we're going to want to put them in their appropriate place and location in order to aid in backing them up later. So in the case of Windows XP and before, these are the My Documents folders with subfolders for documents, pictures, music, video, etc. For Windows 7 beyond, this is called Libraries with the same subfolders. It's the exact same function, it just depends on which system you're using to make it easier. So, what you're going to want to do is, typically this is already created, but if it's not already there, is to create a downloads folder for files and programs downloaded from the internet, if it's not already there. This is going to be one location that you can clean out very frequently. You're not going to want to store documents in your downloads folder typically, as these are things that you use temporarily. If it's still sitting there after a few days and you haven't organized it into one of your other folders, you're going to want to clean those out, as they're not documents that you're going to need in the future. And avoid creating new folders in the C drive. Get in the habit of using the Libraries or My Docs folders, as putting them in the C drive makes documents very easy to lose and can cause problems down the road as to how the information is pulled by your computer. Let's talk about backing up your information. So how many of you have made a backup of every single document, music, and picture that you have on your computer? It may not be very many. I know I have not backed up everything that's available on my computer right now, just very select information. And that might be something that isn't necessarily the best practice. I know if my computer crashed and lost everything right now, it might be very sad about that. So backing up can be as simple as copying data to a thumb drive, or as complicated as creating an image, quote unquote, of your hard drive, which is something that's a little more complicated. There are also cloud options such as storage to Google Drive or the iCloud. So something that's even as simple as you can do in the next 10 minutes is you can order a thumb drive or an external hard drive off of Amazon, order that to your house, plug it in, and simply move all of the documents over. Or even if you already have a Google account, you already have access to Google Drive, you can simply drag all of your important photos, all of your important music, all of your important videos over to Google Drive for as much as it can handle. And then you've got a saved online backup, so you don't even have to worry about keeping up with the thumb drive or the external hard drive. So this is what it might look like for plugging in that external hard drive. Simply what you'll do is pull up your documents folder. We'll want to say copy here and move it all to this external hard drive that we have laying around. And what that'll do is it'll take a little bit of time in order to copy everything over. However, we'll have it all backed up and ready to go just in case anything might happen. Alright, thank you so much for watching our video today. I really appreciate it. If you have any further questions about anything we may have talked about today, you can feel free to make a book librarian appointment through our website, or you can also get in touch with us through the phone. You can get in touch with us through our helpline service or even through chat, and that can all be done at gwinnettpl.org. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.